Kia ora and good morning and welcome back to day 3 of Get Into Games NZ 2022. I am still that guy ZNJ and I've always joined by the effervescent Kahu Tapsal Bennett. I've changed it up because she says I could. That's not going to confuse me much at all, Kahu. But how are you this morning?
I am very good. We had a very interesting morning.
Yes, we
We
did.
had a TV crew, so we did a quick interview with breakfast this morning. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
not often I get to be background talent, but it's very fun. You don't have to do much, and of course I did play Genshin Impact on national television. Didn't get much success out of it, but it was still a lot of fun. As for what day 3 of Giga 2022 looks like, what it is we're going to take a deep dive into esports. Now that's already a big push around esports in this country, with the high school esports secondary schools league being well underway, and there is a primary and intermediate league in the works. But really, what is esports? Kahu, I'm going to quickly ask you, what do you think esports is?
well, I mean, it's short for electronic sports, but
Mm,
esports is a competitive video game
mm,
competition. I guess is the easiest way to say it, the
yeah.
most basic way to explain it.
And it does have the different leagues, from amateur through to
Mm.
professional and all of that, major, minor, all the different things that do normally come with sports. But to help us kind of, understand a little bit more what esports fundamentally is in Aotearoa, New Zealand, this morning we are joined by Jonathan Jansen, aka Arcadian. Arcadian, are you there?
I am. Morena, good morning.
Morena, thank you so much for joining us. Can you please give us a quick introduction on who you are and what your role is?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jonathan Jansen, aka Arcadian, when I'm online in my games. I'm the CEO of the New Zealand Esports Federation in New Zealand, who's the regulatory or the kind of governing body for esports in our country.
So with that, does that mean you kind of have to follow these kind of international regulations that may come through for esports globally?
Yeah, so a little bit of that, but think of
Mm,
it as like there's a New Zealand football, there's a New Zealand rugby, New Zealand netball. This is New Zealand esports, and so our kind
mm,
of role in the space is to help support and grow esports, and to make sure it's
mm,
a really positive thing, and so people can access it no matter what your background is, no matter where you are in the country, and that parents and the support systems really understand all of the values and benefits behind esports, because it is a really fantastic thing, and there's lots of great lessons to be learned and values to be gained. And so it's just our job to kind of make sure that everyone has access to it and that it's a good time.
Now, Jonathan, I do notice you've got some sports equipment behind you. Is there a tie-in between sports in general?
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, I played a lot of sports growing up. I played volleyball, did athletics, hockey, basketball, bit of boxing, and so I was through school kind of a very sports focused student, I guess it was. But it's also, I think, a little bit for me, and one of the reasons we have it in the background is to help people understand that esports isn't a replacement for sport. It's not, you have to
mm.
choose between the two things, and there is a lot of tie up in between. Some people that we talk to about esports might think, it's just someone sitting in a dark room and playing games and not getting outside. But I mean, it's just such a myth that exists out there. The
Mm.
majority of people who play esports, just like me and you, and we play other things and we do other things and we have, lots of other elements and aspects to our lives. And so it's just a nice little reminder to say, hey, sometimes, you might play esports and that's just another normal thing, like any other hobby.
Mm. Balance is key, is what he's saying out there, folks. Now, of course, we will have Mythos Party running just to throw Arcadian off. Any questions we are going to throw at them, Arcadian will be playing the role of Kid Butler, is what I've affectionately named them as. I myself will be the Templar Doctor, and Kahu will be KFC Man once more. So let's jump into Mythos Party. And Kahu, I know you've always got great questions lined up. What have you got for us?
So you speak a lot about sports, and I saw on the news recently something called an E-Black. So I've got the All Blacks, but what is an E-Black?
So the E-Blacks are affectionately named as our national esports team. So just like any other sport, we've got the ones who go and represent our country at representative events, and that's what an E-Black is. So we kind of, because esports is a little bit different, we sort of make sure that It is actually very distracting trying to beat you guys at this game.
I was
sorry,
thinking
Chris.
you're doing very well. I was actually thinking you're doing very well since you both.
But the E-Blacks, yeah, E-Blacks are our national team, so they represent us. Esports is a little bit different where, like, generally when you watch esports, you're watching a private team. And so you're watching, you know, especially for any of the kids out there who are into watching esports on Twitch and everything else, you're usually watching like an OCE team or an Oceanic team, someone built from New Zealand and Australia who kind of play and as part of their professional roster. They get paid, you know, some money. Whereas the E-Blacks is all about national pride. It's making sure that, you know, we represent New Zealand and it's against other countries. And that's kind of, I think, what the great thing about it is.
That was really funny. She's like, questions.
No, okay. So esports is so close to traditional sport that it was streamed on Sky Sport recently. Is that correct?
Yeah, so this last weekend was actually a massive event for us. We hosted the first ever international test match for esports between New Zealand and Australia, which is like a really exciting moment because, like I said, it's usually, you know, your pro teams who are competing, and sometimes it can be hard to, you know, you talk to your family about sport or maybe some of the older people in your family, and they'll sort of think, you know, sport is about being able to support your region, or you have a reason why you want to support a team. Whereas we don't really have that in esports a whole lot. And so we wanted to try and build something where, you know, people can get behind it and really appreciate the fandom behind what esports is. And so that's why we sort of put together this test match, kind of like the Bledisloe Cup of esports. And so it was the McRae Cup is what we were competing for. And then we versed Australia in 3 games. The extra special thing about these games were that the winners between Australia and New Zealand actually got to go to the Commonwealth Esports Championships. So the esports is in the Commonwealth Esports Champs is a pilot event to the Commonwealth Games. And for the first time in history, we're going to be at that event. So that's really exciting for us.
That is exciting. Now, you are interested in more than just the gaming and stuff. So I saw that you are really working to raise the national standard in computer literacy and computer skills. Now, why do you think that's important?
So I mean, we've talked a little bit about the E-Blacks, and we kind of consider that what we call like high performance. And so that's, you know, the top 1.1% of players who might be, you know, the high performers. But there's a lot of other people who play esports, and there's benefits that they can gain as well. And so when we look at like why we play traditional sport, like why do you play rugby, why do you play netball? It's not because you want to become necessarily the next All Black. Like that's not the goal for everyone. It can just be the fact that, you know, you want to make some friends, or you want to, you know, do something with your time, or you want to learn some lessons. And it's the exact same for esports. It's not just about playing games. It's about all the other important things that come with it. It's the well-being, the finding your tribe, the, you know, connecting with people, maybe letting people see who you are beyond, you know, your physical appearance, or, you know, what you are in the classroom. And some people don't get a chance to do that. And so when we start looking at all of those well-being aspects around, you know, what esports is, one of them ends up being basically, let's pick an ability here. Nope. So when we talk about the well-being stuff, one of them is, you know, we have the responsibility, just like any other sport, to teach kids and participants around like healthy life habits. And that includes, you know, sleep and nutrition and making sure that, you know, your sportsmanship. But one thing unique to esports is around the digital well-being, not just your physical well-being, but your digital well-being. Because, you know, we live in a whole new world than our older generation or our parents. And sometimes our parents don't have, you know, the skills to be able to help us navigate that world safely. And so I just threw myself off the map.
I wasn't going to say anything.
But one of the sort of things that we do at esports is the digital well-being aspect as well, which is teaching people, you know, how are you safe online? How do you interact in a digital world? Because it's going to be part of our lives, regardless of like what careers we go into, whether you become a builder or a hairdresser, or you know, you get into computer science and game development. You'll always be around a computer. And so I think giving people the strategies and the tools to operate that environment safely or competently and is really important, and that's kind of like part of the esports message.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's so important. On that note, do you know how parents and teachers can follow up and get more information on things like that? Would there be anything like that on the website?
Yeah, so we've got a few resources on the website. We're also building stuff out still, but www.esf.nz is our website. There's a resource library on there for parents, and it's really just a matter of it's not a difficult thing to learn about. It's just a little bit of research. And so one of the analogies that we kind of talk about all the time is, and it's crazy, right? Like for some reason, a parent will never, ever, ever let you eat ice cream until you throw up. But they'll let kids play games until they basically pass out, until they fall asleep. And it blows out. It's just because we're in a world where we're not kind of familiar with that space. And so esports is an opportunity for us to really like act as leaders, or even like the kaitiakis, the guardians of the esports in the digital space, and give strategies to kids to deal with those issues. Basic resources on the website, but we've got more to come as well. So being a member of the NZ ESF and just like kind of following all of the resources we do provide is a good way to start from a parent's point of view.
So I have to say I'm personally quite a fan of you. The reason being is, so me personally, I'm very interested in gaming, but I'm also very interested in business, and I feel like that's you, right? So can I just ask, how did you get into esports in the first place?
We'll go a little bit story time then. So I grew up in a fairly like low income family. I was the youngest of 4 brothers and sisters, but I was the youngest by quite a lot. And so my older siblings always like kind of did their own thing, or did grown up kid stuff. And I was kind of left to my own devices. And so I got into playing games on the computer and using the computer from a pretty young age. And that's when I started playing games, got into some MMOs, which are the multi-online player games at the time, and I started learning like a whole bunch of really cool stuff, and so that's how I kind of got into gaming. And then from a pretty young age, actually one of my accounts that I used got hacked. And so I spent like years and years building up this character on this game. And my neighbor saw me type in my password and then stole my account. And
so you know how it was though.
Yeah, I know, but like we're at that age where like the parents didn't understand what it was, and so they're just like, oh well, you'll be fine. Like it's just like they took your ball, you'll get over it. But it's like, no, this was 3 years of my life.
Yeah.
But and so I basically like wasn't able to get back to where I was in the game, and so I decided to try and make my own game. Basically, I'm going to make my own world with my own stuff, and so I can get back to where I to how far I was in the game. And that's how I started getting into gaming, and that sort of got me into programming. And so from the age of kind of like 11, 12, you are big, I'm going to run from you right now. Like, I feel like I took the easier way out.
I intimidated you. That still counts as a kill for me because it was just so intimidating.
Oh my god!
So you made your own game. Wow.
So I made my own little like it was a private server. So kind of like you take the code of the game and you kind of like modify it and do your own thing. And so I learned a lot about computers that way. And then I sort of started actually programming pieces of this game for other people who ran their own versions as well. And I realized, like from a fairly young age, that that's a pretty valuable skill, and people were paying me like a couple of $100 to write these little bits of code for them. And as a 14, 15-year-old, I was thinking, okay, this is pretty good. Like I enjoy doing that. And so that's kind of what got me into the whole like games and programming from a pretty young age, and learning about how you can make money. And I guess from that stage, I was kind of like fairly entrepreneurship. So I got really heavy into the computers. I got recruited from a young age. Actually, Microsoft offered me an internship over in Redmond in the US after I left school. But I wasn't able to actually attend because I hadn't done any tertiary study. And so that sort of got put on the back burner. I worked through a couple of companies, started my own business. I did YouTube, and I just kind of like not being afraid to go out there and do your own thing and give things a try. I think a lot of my success that I felt was my success through school was my just like willingness to accept any opportunity. Like I just used to say yes to everything. And I kind of like took that into the real life as well, because one of the things I learned through gaming was or even just using computers in general, like what's the harm in trying? If it breaks, if I click something, like who really cares? Like what's the worst that can happen? And generally, I live by like a life motto, which is you either win or you learn. And the only time you ever lose is if you don't learn a lesson from what you've done wrong. And so it was always like, even if I do this thing or try something, maybe risky, or try something new, even if I'm really bad at it, at least I learn more about, myself, and I learn more about, what my strengths and weaknesses are. And so that's kind of helped me a lot, because over the years, as I've failed a lot, I actually really enjoy failing, because it means I'm getting better at something. And if I look back at myself and I think, man, that was pretty cringe, that's just like that's just an indication that I've grown, right? Like I think like that's really cool, because I'm now a better person. And so that's sort of how I got started into all of my little business journeys. So I did YouTube, and I was an influencer for a few years, and I started a couple of social media businesses, and my own education business, and now I'm doing esports full time, which is awesome.
Something that you said that really interested me is you started it yourself, and you basically just got involved. But having formal education, does that help? And would you recommend someone who really wants to get into it that they do pursue that path through education?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I sort of I think that there's a lot of information out there, but being in an environment where you can learn is probably the most important. Like depending on like understanding how you learn your lessons yourself. Like I'm not going to try and convince people to, everyone should go to university, or everyone should seek formal studies, or whatever it is. But understanding how you learn, what works for you, and then I guess also like what you want your outcomes to be is kind of important. Some people, go through the first couple of years in university still trying to figure out what they want. And that's perfectly fine. Like that's an okay thing to do, because again, you're just learning, where your competencies are, what your, so many people I feel, especially in our industry, have started doing something else, and then they've ended up somewhere completely different.
Yes.
But,
we've been talking about this like both days.
and that's cool. That's not a problem, as long as you kind of, as long as you are learning your lessons along the way, and then it's all just, life's a journey, right? So just enjoy it.
It's a really good way of putting it, and I really like that message that you're sharing with the kids. Just say yes to everything, because even if you fail, you're going to grab something out of it that you can use in future for something else.
Absolutely. And it's always sometimes I feel more confident going into a situation if I've done it before, even if I've failed doing it before, because it's like I know what I did wrong. And it's one of those lessons I probably learned through gaming at a really high level. So I played sort of competitive League of Legends in the early days. And one of the things that I learned in those games were, when you start to play at the very, very top level, you cannot individually control the outcome of a game. And so it came down to me learning, okay, even if I lose, and even if it was my teammate's fault, or even if whatever happened, what were the things that I could have done better? So if I'm in that situation again, how can I be the one that contributes? And I think that lesson really passed into my real life, where it's, even if a deal doesn't go my way, or even if something doesn't work well, where's the opportunity? How do you make the most of it? What can I learn? And then at least the situation, I can't go back in time and change it, but at least how do I make myself a better person on the other end of it? And I think that's, been a super valuable sort of perspective to have on life that I gained through gaming.
Yeah. And with that in mind, if we look at it from a school level there, Jonathan, where should schools start, or who can they get in contact with about esports clubs or support around that?
Yeah, so I think you may have already spoken to Henry at Victory Up, who run the high school secondary school league.
Yep.
So that's a great way for schools to get involved in esports, and so they run a fantastic program with a couple of different esports titles. I guess that's the place to start. So go look at Victory Up in the high school league. Like you mentioned at the beginning of the interview as well, there's got the primary intermediate school space. I think the biggest takeaway is, kids are going to be gaming regardless. And I actually speak to quite a few principals or teachers or parents who are like, some people really love gaming and they understand the value of it, because, for the first time in history, we're able to engage with people through a sport. but teach them really valuable digital skills. And that's like amazing in itself. Whereas on top of that, we're able to introduce sort of kids to how to be safe online, how to use computers appropriately, and be like a role model for people in that space. And so when people, sort of parents say, "Hey, look, it's too much of a risk to play esports, or too much of a risk to do gaming in schools," I personally take the stance of, what's the risk of not being involved? Burying our head in the sand isn't going to stop kids from doing that, but we can at least be role models for them. We can at least set up structures and make sure that they, do these things safely and appropriately. And I take a sort of a look at, if you compare it to, let's say, rugby, and we said, do we want to let kids play rugby and supervise it and create refs and create a structure around it and make sure that it's a healthy environment and that everything's going well? Or do we just like leave them to go and tackle each other, on the fields with no rules and smash each other up? And it's like, well, it's obviously much better if we kind of create a safe environment for them to do that. And it's the same with esports. I think there's always those risks involved, especially with everything online. And that's the difference for anyone listening out there who thinks gaming and esports are the same thing. They're absolutely not. Gaming is going home and jumping on the console. Or what we're doing right now, is gaming. Whereas esports is the equivalent to, getting up at, it's the going to the beach with some mates and throwing a ball around. That doesn't make you a rugby player. Just like going home playing games doesn't make you an esports athlete. The communication, the resilience, the teamwork, the learning to deal with really complex emotional situations where, you might be super frustrated that you lost a game that you felt like was out of your control, and you have all these emotions running through you. But learning how to deal with those in like a healthy way are things you can learn through esports that you might not learn by just gaming by yourself at home. And I think that's the value that esports brings. And I encourage, everyone to get involved, because even from my own personal journey, I stumbled across some really valuable lessons that changed my life. But to have something in a school environment that's structured and designed to give you as many of those benefits as possible, I get really excited and passionate about it, because I think that, we can do so much good for the greater community and sort of our next generation. And so, yeah, esports has got a bright future, and I hope that it has a fantastic positive impact on our kids.
Well, I think that's just such a brilliant piece to leave that on. For those looking for you out there, Jonathan, for this bright future of esports, where can they check out some of the work you're on at the moment?
Well, if you're on social media, then I'm on, we're on Twitter, NZ ESF, the website, or esf.nz is where a lot of our stuff goes. But yeah, usually we're on Twitter or Facebook for our social posts and like learning more about what we do. But a lot of our resources are available through our website, esf.nz. It's free to sign up to become a supporter. And so, definitely recommend that everyone who's interested in learning more about upcoming esports events, how you can get involved in your area, resources for parents, go to the website, sign up. And just be part of the community. And then, we're going to grow this together. I think we have a couple thousand kids, playing esports every weekend right now. And my goal is in the next, couple of years, to take down rugby as the #1 sport played every weekend by school kids.
There we go. Yeah, that'll be great. Well, for that, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Jonathan Jansen, aka Arcadian. All your insights have always been fantastic, especially around esports. For us, though, we are going to be crossing over to check it out. Myself, going to the Let's Play Live studio. So over to you, Zeno. Take us to Let's Play Live. Thank you, Zeno. That's right, folks. We are here in Tamaki Makaurau, beautiful Auckland, at Sky City to check out the Let's Play Live studios. Now, you may know them as LPL, one of New Zealand's well-established esports organizations. We're going to be talking to founder and managing director Duan Mutu to find out the kind of pathways you'll need or opportunities you can take to get into esports. Let's go check it out. We are here with Duan Mutu, yes, the founder and managing director of LPL. I only found that because I looked at the signature on my email. I wasn't sure what title to use, Duan, but I appreciate it. I said to Blaze, I was like, whew, that's a title, and that's something you could get yourselves out there, Tamariki. That's a title you could earn within esports. So, Duan, tell us about LPL. How did you get into this?
Yeah, well, my background is I've been in video gaming a long time, so I actually worked my way up.
Right.
One of the earlier jobs I had was actually, and I think it's a good one of those things that all tamariki rangatahi can get into is sometimes it's about energy and just putting your best foot forward and working hard. And I got a lucky break because I worked in a company that launched a Nintendo GameCube. And then I launched these video games, and so one of my first jobs was actually demoing video games to the retailers. And so they'd fly me offshore, give me the controller. I wasn't a very good gamer, by the way, but I'd learn how to demo it, and then I worked my way up to become quite some of those senior roles in video gaming around the world. And so I understood gaming over a number of years, and then realized that the future of gaming, this go back like 10 years, was about the content of gaming and esports. And then we started Let's Play Live to give a pathway for Kiwis who hadn't seen it before, thought it was offshore in Korea. And it's been a long grind, but here we are now. And so our job here at Aotearoa is to do the biggest tournaments with the biggest publishers to offer pathways for everyone out there to have a crack.
Awesome. Now, with LPL, what have been maybe some of your favorite moments or the biggest things that Let's Play Live has done?
Look, I mean, we've worked with some of the biggest brands and TV networks. I think the big thing is, when you start out on that journey, is sometimes people are going to tell you no. That's a good thing. Oh, this is not going to happen. It's a lot easier now to talk about it. It's a real thing. But as you know, Jordan, we've known each other for a long time. But people were like, we can't put gaming on TV. Well, we put it on TV. So, the first time we saw it on TV was just monumental because it was just this phenomenal thing to see gaming on a TV channel. So that was really cool. Then we had a big event with thousands of people turn up. We did that. That was super cool. And then over the years, we just have these nice moments where you see some people who you would never expect to be into gaming. And gamers, whether it's All Blacks or celebrities who you think are celebrities, and working with the biggest streamers. We've had some of the biggest streamers in the world here, some of the best players. And so you get these pinch points all the time. And it's to that initial point is when you start the journey, could have we seen it sitting here now? And those are little wins along the way, And so it's been a long process, but those are probably the main things. Seeing it on TV, then growing it to an event, and now seeing people who you would never expect to see sitting here next to me and you and being part of it.
What are these kind of pathways that kids could take, our rangatahi to get into gaming?
Well, that's a good question. And sometimes we work with a lot of rangatahi about how do I get into gaming, because maybe you had a good break because you worked at it and fell into gaming, so to speak, and kept going. But what I think people miss is we're seeing this big shift of traditional skills of broadcast. We're ultimately a broadcaster, right? So think about, we've got radio school, we've got broadcasting school. Now you can do it in your bedroom if you're a streamer like this, learn how to do it. And so we need those skills. Right now you need someone to be a sound engineer. We need people who can shoot cameras. We need people who can be producers and directors. And so a lot of the team that we see have come through either young ones coming through the traditional pathways of broadcast and other people who have come from traditional broadcast, Sky Sports, TVNZ, and they've transitioned into this. And so it's a viable career pathway for those who want to learn traditional skills and go, hey, I'm just really into sound. Great, well, come work in video gaming, right? So there's that part of it, and then there's the core bit, which everyone's like, oh, I just love video games. I love video gaming. Like, can I actually just do some stuff in gaming? And so, to your point, it's there's volunteer opportunities at LPL. A lot of my staff have come through from literally that background. They start as volunteers, they become admins, then they can become full-time staff. So, and it's really about, to your point, putting your hand up, working hard. There hasn't been to date a lot of those core skills on how do I just get into the video game sector, but it's now happening. So it's basically, have you got a passion for gaming? Do you know some things in gaming? And then try to find opportunities that you can teach yourself. But it's sort of traditional, and I call it core gaming skills, and then that's what we've got. So
it's about kind of finding that specialized skill set that might suit the skills you have. And with that in mind, of course, you guys are now collaborating with NZMA to create a course based around all of this stuff, correct?
Yeah, that's super exciting. It's been in the works for a couple of years. And what we really wanted to see was, to your point, how do you just go, I mean, this sounds great, you're on camera, you're talking, but they just don't mean anything to me if I'm leaving school, right? And certainly, the reason we partnered with NZMA was really because they were ones who were like, look, we want to offer this, primarily for free for people in, certain areas that may not have the opportunities that others could offer. Awesome, right? Like, so then we did that. And now what it is these courses that are NZQA accredited, so literally like you're being at school, but you're going to learn how to do some traditional things I mentioned, and then learn how to implement them in an esports scenario. So ultimately the course is about learning all those skills. The apex or the climax of that particular course is that you're going to put on an esports tournament, and then you can transition further. So that's the NZMA course. So if anyone's interested, I think it's already sold out, but they're opening up campuses in Wellington, Christchurch. They've got one in Auckland that happens in the next couple of months. And they're going to just open up more and more courses. So that's how successful it's been. So if that's a bit of you, that's a great pathway through. And LPL is also there to help offer some mentorship through the various people. Might have to get you in there as well. It's like how as a presenter when you do it.
If you ask one, I will turn up.
Right. So that's the deal. So that's the NZMA course.
Yeah. So there you have it, kids. If you want to check out what they are doing behind the scenes, just go to Google and search for Let's Play Live NZ or NZMA to look up the courses that are on offer to help you with this exciting space that is happening. Dwan, thank you so much. Until next time, we'll go back to the studio and I'll talk to myself again. Thank you. So, there you have it, folks. That was Let's Play Live, aka LPL NZ, and ways you can get into the world of esports and broadcasting. Like I said, Google Let's Play Live NZ and also NZMA to check out the courses on offer to help you get into this exciting world. Now, let's head back to the studio. Thank you for handing back to me there, Zeno. That was great work out there at Let's Play Live. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. That segment with Duan was really, really fantastic, and it really talks to the world of esports and all the different facets of it that really make it up, whether or not it's a professional player through to the shoutcasters that are necessary for producing an entertaining stream for all of those people watching at home. In regards to that, though, when it comes to streaming, we also have chatting and we do have chat etiquette. We do appreciate everybody in the chat at the moment. But when the chat is not following the actual content that we are sharing with you guys, it makes it a little bit hard for us to find the questions that we do want to answer in regards to this amazing world of getting into games in Aotearoa in 2022. So when we do return at 11 for that next spot, we would love if we can see you guys just engaging what we're sharing with you at this stage. As for you, Kahu, how did you find that whole segment before you wrap us up?
That was awesome. So the interview that you just did with LPL, their studio is literally on the Sky Tower. So, you know, one of New Zealand's most iconic buildings has a gaming studio in it. I think that just shows just where we are going with gaming. So that was awesome. Thank you so much to Jonathan from the NZ ESF. Thank you so much to Duan from the LPL, and thank you so much, Zeno, who is just right next to me. But
thank you to you, Kahu. Thank you.
Hey, stay with us. We're going to go for a break. We will be back at 11, and we will be interviewing one of those E-Blacks that we were talking about earlier. See you soon, guys.
Ka kite.